And we're from the low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now a part of the Beast and Family podcast. And we've got a tremendous podcast for you guys. It is the Big East Conference Preview Edition. Joining me as he does seemingly every single year is John Fanta. He does such tremendous work taking a look at the game of college basketball. He is Mr. Big East. Does tremendous work with regards to Fox Sports, does great work over at the Field of 68 and so many other platforms. He joins me in segment number 2 to take a look at all 11 teams within the conference, take a look at some of the coaching changes and so much more that we've got with this absolutely amazing Big East. It is always tremendous to be able to get him aboard, and he lends some of the best insights in all of college basketball. Very much looking forward to that in segment number 2. In the final segment, going to get you guys my projected or finish for the Big East. And if you ever do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of two ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my old X timeline at Gene_41, better known as Twitter. Keep in mind, letters CM. The me does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast by that 5-star review, as per usual. With regards to one of these conference previews, I'm going to be doing a just look at the styles of play within the conference, along with the betting trends in segment number 1. And because I am doing a conference preview today, that means that the news and notes that we saw in college basketball on Tuesday, I'll be rounding those up on Wednesday. So we're going to do the last 48 hours of college basketball news and notes on tomorrow's podcast. So have no fear, I will get you taken care of there. And let's get down to business and let's take a look at a Big East that had the national champion in the conference last season in UConn. And it was just absolutely amazing what we did see from the Big East, because with the Big East, obviously, UConn was a big reason why this was the case, but this conference was absolutely remarkable with regards to being able to take care of business out of the conference, both straight up and against the spread. You take a look at what this conference was able to do against the spread in non-conference games, and certainly what UConn did was something to behold. 16-0-1 against the spread outside of the conference. It shows you just how strong this conference was. Now, you did have one slug in the conference last season in terms of non-conference being able to cover the spread. That would be Villanova, 3-9 against the spread. That's because they had Justin Moore on the fold during non-conference play. They were trying to find themselves in year number 1 out of Kyle Neptune. So I think that was a big reason why. And then you had Georgetown at 4-7 against the spread in non-conference games. Our good friend Patrick Ewing was not doing the best job there, but you did have quite a few teams that were outside of UConn that did a solid job outside the conference as well. Creighton, 9-6 against the spread, and keep in mind that a few of those against the spread losses as well were with Ryan Kalkbrenner out of the fold. If you factor that in as well, with Ryan Kalkbrenner, I believe that they went 9-4 against the spread in non-conference games. So do be mindful of that. Seton Hall was able to go 7-4 against the spread in non-conference play. Butler was one of your lesser teams in the conference, 7-3-1 against the spread in non-conference games. Marquette went 7-5-1 against the spread in non-conference games. And then you had DePaul, St. John's, both go 5-6 against the spread in non-conference play. Providence was 5-7. So all in all, outside the conference, the Big East was able to show his might. And with regards to the Big East as well, as we know, there are some of the most famous venues in all of college basketball that host these teams, but it was really the road teams that were able to clean up with regards to being able to cover the spread. Now, UConn was absolutely tremendous at home at being able to cover 11-5-1 against the spread. Providence, the old Dunkin' Donuts Center, which I believe they call it like a Mika Fieldhouse or something like that. It's a dunk. 10-7 against the spread at home, but you really had nobody else cover more than 53.5% of their games against the spread at home. And this was really brought down by Georgetown and St. John's going 5-12 against the spread when they were at home. You had Creighton, Seton Hall both go 7-8 against the spread at home. Villanova was just 5-8 against the spread at home, and DePaul was 5-9-1 against the spread at home, as these were a bunch of road warrior teams, as you only had one team finish more than one game below 500 in terms of against the spread on the road, and that'd be DePaul, who's just been dead last within the conference for seemingly 2 decades. 5-8-1 against the spread on the road. Creighton, St. John's, Butler all went either 5-6 or 5-6-1 against the spread on the road. And then Seton Hall, 9-3-1 against the spread on the road. Marquette, 9-3 against the spread on the road. Georgetown, 8-4 against the spread on the road. Xavier, Providence, 7-4 against the spread on the road. UConn, 6-5 against the spread on the road. Villanova, 7-7. A lot of this is because You do have a little bit of a haves and have-nots with regards to this conference as well, because I was mentioning that tiered system. You've got the likes of Georgetown, DePaul. They're just not good teams. They find themselves as home underdogs, and you're able to get short lines on teams like Creighton, last year Xavier, obviously UConn, when they go on the road and they are able to get the job done on those tight spreads, be able to get those outright wins, and an outright win typically is enough to be able to cover. Like, you take a look at all these teams as favorites, and it was pretty rampant. Villanova did not do a good job as a favorite. They went 8-14 against the spread, but I mean, really past that, everyone else was pretty solid. DePaul went 4-5 against the spread as a favorite. Georgetown was 3-5 against the spread as a favorite, but Creighton 17-15 against the spread as a favorite. Marquette 16-11 in the favorites role. UConn certainly hiked this up, 25-11-1 against the spread as a favorite, but even Butler 9-3-1 against the spread as a favorite. Seton Hall 9-6-1 against the spread as a favorite as well. So favorites were really able to do a solid job when you were able to get these really tight lines with these teams that might be on the road, like being a 2-point favorite. They were able to get it done, unlike in so many other conferences. And you just take a look at the Big East hierarchy, and you certainly had your Big Five teams. UConn and Providence, and these are straight up records. They went 13-7 within the conference. Marquette, they won the conference at 17-3. Xavier went 15-5. Creighton 14-6. And then there's just a big divide from there. Georgetown at 2-18, and man, the fact that Georgetown won 2 conference games the last 2 years really did help out the rest of these, as if you're in a power conference, you actually do want this. You want like 1 or 2 absolutely terrible teams, and then that allows everyone else to feast, and you had that with this conference. As DePaul, they went 3-17 within the conference, and then from there you had Butler at 6-14 within the conference, St. John's at 7-13, and then a pair of 10-10 teams with Seton Hall and Villanova. This was perfect for them, getting 5 teams into the NCAA tournament and having that big giant run that we saw from UConn. And if you are taking a look with regards to just the styles of play that we do get in the Big East, it's very interesting, because I do think that the Big East set themselves up very well to be able to have that big run in March from 1 or 2 teams with UConn and the way that they were able to play. As for UConn, they were one of the few teams in all of college basketball in the top 20 in terms of both points scored and points allowed on a per possession basis. A very balanced team, and that was indicated with regards to their tempo. 175th out of 363 D1 teams with regards to total possessions per game. Not too fast, not too slow, so a perfect fit there. And they went up against some teams that were super duper fast and some teams that were super duper slow. The team that was really playing at warp speed was Marquette along with Xavier. Xavier 34th in the country with regards to total possessions per game. Marquette has really sped things up under Shaka Smart. Fell off a little bit towards the back half of the season, but still a team that did rank 89th in the country with regards to possessions per game. Would be remiss to not say that under Mike Anderson, St. John's was a team that really sped it up as well. Number 4 in the country with regards to total possessions per game. You saw Rick Pitino at Iona in non-conference play very fast. In conference, it slowed down a little bit more. That's, in my opinion, a little bit of a byproduct due to the fact that the MEAC, due to the fact that the MAC with 2 A's was one of the slowest conferences in all of college basketball. So I do think that he's still going to be playing a fast tempo, and you can always bank on Villanova playing at a very slow tempo. With the Villanova Wildcats, 327th in the country with regards to total possessions per game. No doubt about it, you're going to be having Seton Hall and Butler try to grind it out as well. As Butler, I think, might play a little bit more up-tempo this season, but they were 256th in the country in terms of total possessions per game, and your number 1 are Shaheem Holloway. We saw Seton Hall play right around 225th, and then you had a lot of mid-tempo teams from there. Georgetown, they were playing a little bit faster when they were under the tutelage of Patrick Ewing, and if we're going to call it what it is, they were faster, but they weren't necessarily more efficient, to say the least, as they're a team that they really struggle being outside the top 225 in terms of both points scored and points allowed on a per possession basis. I do think that our good friend and Mr. Ed Cooley going to be able to clean that up just a little bit, but that was a bit of an issue with regards to what they were looking to do. And in the Big East as well, you've got all sorts of different styles with these teams and how they operate on both offense and defense as well. Like Marquette was one of the worst rebounding teams in all of college basketball last year. Meanwhile, UConn, they were one of the best teams with regards to rebound rate in all of college basketball. But what Marquette did was they force a lot more turnovers than UConn, and thus you had two of the better teams in all of college basketball within the same conference playing complete dueling styles, and that makes it really interesting to take a look at things from a totals perspective, because you do have teams that they play faster and slower. You've got teams that are just a little bit all over the place with regards to what they look to do, and it resulted in a pretty nice split between over teams and under teams. You had one very demonstrative under team at Butler, 9 overs, 21 unders, and 2 pushes. They weren't too bad on defense, and they were pretty awful on offense. Meanwhile, Xavier, they really kicked things up tempo from what we saw under Sean Miller while he was at Arizona. This caused them to be a very good over team, 23 overs, 13 unders, and a push. And then from there, you had a lot of teams that were pretty even-steven, like UConn, 21 overs, 18 unders. And then from there, you didn't see any other team within the Big East have more than 53% of their games go under, or more than 54.8% of their games go under the total. As Seton Hall, 14 overs, 17 unders, and a push. Creighton and Marquette, they both had 17 overs to 19 unders, with Creighton having a push in there. DePaul, St. John's both played as many overs as unders as well. So you did notice a conference where things were very much able to iron out with all these different styles, getting things to a point where these teams really didn't have too many demonstrative trends with regards to the over and the under. And if you do take a look at non-conference games, because I was mentioning the Big East, they did an amazing job outside the conference, what you did find was something a little bit more demonstrative there. So many games going over outside the conference, with Xavier having 11 out of their 14 games go over with regards to non-conference play. St. John's 6-4-1 to the over, and then a bunch of teams that were between about 53.5% to 58.5% to the over in non-conference play. UConn 10-7 with this regard. Villanova 7-5 to the over. Butler 5 overs, 4 unders, 2 pushes. You had 6 overs and 5 unders for both DePaul and Georgetown, and then 8-7 with regards to Creighton to the over. Your biggest under team outside the conference was Seton Hall, 4 overs to 7 unders, and then once you got into conference play, you did see a little bit more to the under, as St. John's, Creighton, Villanova all played between 54.5% and 59% of their games to the under, and Butler was really the team that really caused for a bit of a sinkhole with regards to a lot of these unders. 4 overs to 17 unders, as they just could not find their rhythm during conference play last season. So those are some of the betting trends that we saw with the Big East last year, and a little bit of a lay of the land with regards to styles of play that we get in the Big East. Coming up next, we get on Mr. Big East himself, John Fanta. He does such an amazing job taking a look at the game of college basketball over there at Fox Sports. He joins this podcast every year to break down this conference I love so much, and I'm very much looking forward to him joining me next right here on Coast to Coast with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the Beast Family Podcast, the Big East Conference Preview Edition.
Are you ready to become a winning sports bettor? Schedule a call with SBIA to find out how their service can make you a long-term winning player. They've developed an innovative algorithm that maximizes units returned, and they are so confident in their system that they offer a money-back guarantee. Sign up by October 31st and get their MBA package at no cost until they reach 10 net units. They treat sports betting like a business. So if you want to learn how to make your sports betting dreams a reality, visit them at SBIA1.com and check them out on social media at SBIA Sports.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the Beast Family Podcast. This is the Big East Conference Preview Edition, so it's a tradition unlike any other to get this man aboard for it. It is John Fanta who is joining me, and John Fanta is Mr. Big East himself. He does tremendous work over at the Big East Digital Network, Field of 68, Fox Sports, and FoxSports.com. You know him because he does all of those Big East games every single year. He's one of the voices of college basketball, and on top of that, a man that never ever stops working, as well as I believe that he's coming to me from an airport. I don't know which airport it is, but he's probably flying to get us set for the Big East season, as you're able to follow him on the old X at John_Fanta. And John, it's great to have you aboard. Thank you.
Hoops Peterson, it's great to be with you. And fittingly, I am at Newark Airport flying to Milwaukee tonight to visit with the Marquette Golden Eagles tomorrow. So it's fitting to be talking with you as I'll be gearing up to sit down with Shaka Smart and his Golden Eagles, the reigning Big East regular season and tournament champions. When we did this preview pod last year, who would have ever thought we'd be saying that now?
Absolutely. And let's start out with the Marquette Golden Eagles. You just led right into it, because with Marquette, they didn't do anything flashy in the offseason. It's not like they've got a whole bunch of guys coming in from the transfer portal that average double figures at their previous spot. And they do lose Olivier Maximins Prosper, who he became an NBA draft pick. I mean, credit where credit is due to Shaka Smart, brought him in from Clemson, where he wasn't necessarily a high-usage guy. In 2 years at Marquette, he becomes an NBA pro. But other than that, Marquette brings back darn near everyone from last season. And, I mean, with Marquette, certainly rebounding is a little bit of an issue that they're going to look to do a better job of. But all in all, this is a Marquette team that is very powerful on offense and can rip the ball away from you on defense.
You're absolutely right. They are highly effective on the offensive end of the floor, and that's because they have an elite point guard in Tyler Kolek, who's the reigning Big East Player of the Year. To think that Kolek last year, Hoops, had 270 assists to just 90 turnovers is absolutely crazy. And when you pair him together with Cam Jones and then Stevie Mitchell, I think is an X factor for this Marquette team. So good defensively, makes things happen that are productive winning plays. The key for Marquette to repeat as a Big East champion is, can David Joplin now step up in that role that Olivier Maxence Prosper had last year? And then what kind of a rise do they get out of guys like Chase Ross as well as Ben Gold? They've got the center in Oso Ighodaro. They've got the point guard in Tyler Kolek. They've got the coach in Shaka Smart. I do think one interesting note for you, Shaka Smart has been to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament one time in his coaching career. That was when he took VCU all the way in the Final Four. Can he find a way to get to that second weekend? Can he break through? That's the key for the Golden Eagles. They're too good for me to not make it to the second weekend of the Big Dance.
With Marquette, I do think that they've got the goods once again to go very deep in the NCAA tournament. And it's a question of, can they dethrone UConn on top of the league or not? Because while UConn did not win the regular season conference crown, as we know, this is a team that is the reigning defending national champions. And you know what? That is exactly where you want to be. But a little bit of a wrinkle here for UConn in that Donovan Clingan is right now dealing with an injury. It seems like with the timetable, you should be set to go for the start of the season. But as we know, with the likes of Northern Arizona, Stonehill, for the first few games for the upcoming schedule, if you do need to sit them for those games, I'm sure that UConn would gladly trade that in order to have them good to go when it comes to their games against Kansas or multi-team events, what have you. But how do you view this UConn team and that they are going to be losing a few guys like Andre Jackson and company, but they do return the likes of Tristan Newton and Alex Caravan?
Yeah, they have their point guard back in Newton, who was a really vital piece to what the Huskies ended up doing in the NCAA tournament. When they hit their stride, it's because they got point guard play. And Dan Hurley told me after the national championship game last year, Greg, that he thought his team would have a shot, but they had to get point guard play. And Newton, transferring in from East Carolina, I think he was even better than they thought he would be in March. The key for Connecticut is this: perimeter shooting, and just how good will these freshmen be? Because that could swing them into that national championship repeat kind of gear. Look, Donovan Clingan's going to be an All-American. I think he's going to be that good. Alex Caravan is steady. To me, can UConn hit enough threes, or will teams be able to pack it in on them? Last year, Connecticut had an elite shooter in Jordan Hawkins. They don't have a Jordan Hawkins on this team, but they do have Cam Spencer, a guy who averaged double figures in the Big Ten, and they bring in a highly touted recruit in Stephen Castle, who I think is going to have a fantastic one-and-done type season. So between Stephen Castle, Solomon Ball, they've got freshmen, they've got intriguing pieces, freshmen with upside, and Clingan and Caravan are beyond their years. They might be listed as sophomores, Hoops, but they don't play like it. So I'll tell you what, this team did lose. I mean, Andre Jackson, Adama Sanogo, Jordan Hawkins are all huge pieces. But we saw just how talented UConn was and how deep they were. Now those guys are going to be counting on to do a little bit more. If Castle is truly one-and-done Big East Freshman of the Year material, I think it's on the table that UConn could be right back in the Final Four come April.
With this UConn team, you know that they're going to be a menace on defense, and they were one of the few teams in all of college basketball to be a top 25 team in terms of both offensive and defensive efficiency as well. John Fanta, he is Mr. Big East College Basketball. He is joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops, and we just took a look at two of the teams that we can expect to be up top, and let's call it what it is. This team in DePaul, they have been at the bottom of the conference really for 2 decades, and it's just all about trying to build upward momentum. when it comes to this DePaul team, in my opinion, as it is a bunch that they are going to be bringing back some pieces from the backcourt. Someone like Caleb Murphy, who dealt with injury last year, being able to get him back for hopefully a full season should be able to help them out a little bit. I do think that they've got someone in Deshaun Nelson that's worth taking note of as well, but I do take a look at this DePaul team, and they face an uphill battle in what is going to be one of the best conferences in all of college basketball, and just quite frankly, not having the depth or the talent, in my opinion, to really be able to ascend much more than the bottom few spots with regards to this conference.
Yeah, I think for the Blue Demons, it's going to be critical for Elijah Fisher, a Texas Tech transfer, and Jeremiah Oden, a Wyoming transfer, to come in and supply significant contributions. I've heard good things about Fisher, and I've heard that Jeremiah Oden has come in with a work ethic and a toughness that can help this team. Look, they're going to need Deshaun Nelson to play a key role. He's versatile. He's athletic. He's a guy who can make things happen in the post. The thing, though, is, Greg, they don't have consistency at the center position. They're just not big enough. They're going to be very versatile, but you got to be able to have enough big men play to hang with the likes of Donovan Clingan, Ryan Kalkbrenner, Joel Soriano. The list goes on and on. There's some great bigs in the Big East this year. So I get concerned with DePaul's ability to hang with those front lines. I think that's the key for them. But for me, look, having Murphy and having Terry in your backcourt, they've got some guards. They've got some versatility. The problem is the Big East is just so tough. I don't know how the Blue Demons make a move upwards. I think that they will be picked in the preseason to finish last. And until they prove otherwise, that's where they probably deserve to be.
Yeah, it's really, really rough because DePaul has tried so many things to be able to ascend in the conference, but you just have so many teams that are just so locked and loaded that it makes it very difficult, and they just aren't bringing in the level of transfers, in my opinion, to be able to make that move upward. Though I will take a look at this team, and I think it's going to be fascinating what happens in year number one because a lot was made in the offseason for our good friend Ed Cooley going from Providence over to Georgetown. As we know, Patrick Ewing did not get the job done over there at Georgetown. 2 conference wins the last 2 years. That's not going to cut it, but with Mr. Ed Cooley, he has a few guys returning from last year, like Jay Heath, who was relatively solid from three-point range, and Rowan Brumba, I think, is a very underrated guy, a former top 150 recruit that just didn't see the floor last season, but this is going to be a work in progress with a lot of guys that they didn't necessarily reach their peak potential, whether they were at Georgetown or if they were transfers, and it is going to be up to Ed Cooley to get those guys to be able to develop.
Yes, that's what's going to be up for Ed to do. But more than anything, Greg, it's been so long since Georgetown basketball was competitive, and they're going to be competitive again. They've been so far off the map, and Ed Cooley's going to help that right away. He is a really good in-game coach. It's going to take some time. I think the Hoyas are a back half of the Big East team this year. But you know what? I don't think this turnaround is going to take that long. I think Cooley can have them dancing next year or the year after that. Not this upcoming season, but the following, if not year 3. I don't think it's going to take him that long. I like Jaden Epps a lot. Remember, Jaden Epps helped lead Illinois to a Jimmy V Classic win over Texas last year at Madison Square Garden. Rowan Brumbaugh is filled with potential. I mean, I really like him a lot. They still have Jay Heath. They brought in Dontrez Styles from North Carolina. You know, I think the same thing applies for Georgetown. Do they have enough bigs? Do they have enough size? I think that's the primary concern for Cooley as he takes over. But I like his guard play. I like some of his pieces. And watch out for Ishmael Massoud, Greg, because we both know he served as a Swiss Army knife to what Kansas State did last year.
Yes, I do think that Ismail Massoud is someone that's a little bit under the radar, someone that's 6'8", 6'9", is able to pop those threes. Absolutely. As joining me on the show, we do have John Fanta. He does tremendous work, and he is Mr. Big East basketball. And when it comes to Providence, they are the team that Ed Cooley leaves behind, but with this Providence team, they now bring in Kim English, and English, he's putting a little bit of an English twist with regards to this team, bringing with him a trio of guys from George Mason, Josh Oduru, along Javante Games, and Justin Fernandez. Fernandez didn't log a lot of points, but he's a high upside guy. Josh Oduru, someone who stands 6'8", 6'9", that's able to do a little bit of everything. But I think the biggest win when it came to this offseason for Providence, keeping Bryce Hopkins in the fold, as Bryce Hopkins was absolutely amazing, 16 points, 8.5 boards, Devin Carter being back as well, I think is big. And it's sort of a blend of what we saw from George Mason last year, what we saw for Providence last year. And even though it is tough to replace someone like an Ed Cooley, I do think that Kim English has all the tools at his disposal to keep Providence competitive and in the NCAA tournament picture.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I expect the Friars to be an NCAA tournament team. Bryce Hopkins is going to be drafted to the NBA come June. I mean, at 6'7", 6'8", the ability to score it off the dribble, his jump shot has really improved. He told me earlier this week, Greg, in a conversation I had with him, that Kim English has come in and been a shot doctor to Bryce. He's really, really helped his shot-making ability. They've got a great piece in Devin Carter, who's that Swiss Army knife, who defends at a high level, whose offensive game surprised me last year. The key for Providence is simple. Can Josh Oduro hold up? Because Will McNair transferred out of the Friars program here just a couple of weeks ago. Providence is a little bit thin at the 5. They're going to need Oduro to be big time. I think he can be, Greg, but that is a question. And then I think for Providence, their guard play, I think they've got enough options. I mean, Carter can run the point if he has to, but they've got Jaden Pierre. They've got Corey Floyd. You brought up ticket gains on the perimeter. This team has a Big East Player of the Year candidate in Bryce Hopkins. If Oduro stays healthy, knock on wood, the Friars should dance.
I think that with Providence, they are going to be in for a really nice year as well. And I think that the fall off that you could have had with Ed Cooley, very much mitigated by the great job that Kim English has been able to do this offseason. And I've seen a lot of different predictions with regards to this team, and that would be Seton Hall. With Seton Hall, they're a team that they played some tough, gritty defense last season, but on offense, they were a little bit lacking. But I think the big key for this team is that Kadari Richmond is one of the most underrated and versatile players, in my opinion, in the Big East. I absolutely love his game. He's able to give you like 10 points, 5 boards, 4 assists, shoots it well from three-point range. He does a little bit of everything. And Dylan Adi-Owusu coming in from St. John's, I think is going to be big as well. This team takes a hit down low. They're going to need up transfers like Elijah Hutchins-Everett, Jada Bediako coming in to be able to hold down the fort for this team. But I think that a lot of people are a little bit too low on Seton Hall, and I think the world of the job that Mr. Holloway has done as a coach, both in his time at Seton Hall, along with obviously what he did with the Peacocks as well.
Yeah, I think that Seton Hall is definitely a sleeper candidate in the Big East. You know, Shaheen Holloway had his ups and downs in year one, Greg. I think coming off the Elite Eight, he wasn't going to surprise anybody. He gained the respect of America. And the Pirates had a lot of injuries. They had a lot of illness. So they never really got to finding a rhythm. And as you know, Kadari Richmond was hurt. So the season kind of ended. It ended flat. But Richmond's back. He's healthy. He's practicing well. And when you combine him with a guy in Dylan Adi-Owusu who is a good scorer and a guy that can kind of get into microwave mode in a game, remember, they've got Al Dawes, who's experienced. They've got Dre Davis, who's experienced, a good wing. He plays tough defense. Again, another team, I think for the Big East, the way I see it is the top half of the league is filled with great bigs. Kalkbrenner, Klingen, Soriano. You could continue on and on with the teams in the league that are at the top of the league. Eric Dixon at Villanova is another one. The teams that are kind of in the middle to the back, those are the ones that are trying to figure out their front court. The fact is, we do not know what Shaheen Holloway is going to do at center, whether it's Elijah Hutchins-Everett, whether it's Shaden Bediako, whether it's somebody else. So when you have that big of a question mark, it's hard to understand what this team exactly will be. But Holloway gets his teams to play hard, gets his teams to defend. You know, you remember the Pirates last year, they beat UConn. They crushed Providence on Providence's home court. They should have beaten Xavier in Cincinnati. The point is, they're in a lot of games, and that's what kind of leads them, in my mind, for them to be a sleeper team in the Big East because they've got experience, they've got a really good coach, and I think a lot of people are counting them out. And I don't know if that's the smartest idea. Seton Hall could be a team that you just find is around the bubble, and I'm not saying they're making the tournament, but I think that they could be hanging around that conversation.
I agree with you. I think it's going to be really difficult for them to crack something like the top 5 just because this conference is so locked and loaded. I think that there's a debate to be had whether or not the Big East is number 2 in all of college basketball. I think it's conference. It's hard to go against the Big East. But, man, I do think that for Seton Hall, if this is the bottom half of the conference team, then you've got yourself a really, really good conference. And this is going to be one of those teams that is going to be looking to make that upward jump as well. As we do have John Fanta, does great work over at Fox Sports Field of 68, and so many others joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops. And that'd be Butler. As Butler, the team went 40 straight seasons without losing 18 games or more, and they have now lost 18 or more games each of the last 2 seasons. Very unheard of for this program, but now you've got Thad Matta, who's in season number 2. He is going to be looking for a little bit more down low. He brings in the likes of Andre Screen and company, and Posh Alexander, such an interesting piece, had like a career worst year last year at St. John's. I think part of it is that things just did not mesh well when he was playing alongside Andre Curbelo, but I do like some of the pieces that Butler was able to pick up. I think the biggest question is, can they just be able to run a little bit more up-tempo? Because I do think that with this Butler team, with the pieces that they brought in this offseason, they are going to need to play a little bit faster.
Yeah, they're going to have to play faster because if you play faster, you got a better chance of scoring. And the fact is, Butler last year offensively was not good. They need Posh Alexander to be at the helm of this. They need him to be a guy that really sets the tone on both ends of the floor. I think for Butler, shot making is really important, and it's an if for this team. I mean, they brought in DJ Davis from out west. They brought in a transfer there in Davis, who I think should help them. They went ahead and hit the portal well. I like Jameel Telfort from Northeastern. I think that he's a really interesting player that can help them. And then, keep an eye on Pierre Brooks. Tough, hard-nosed player. Can he find his stride at Butler with more of an opportunity than he had at Michigan State? My breakout player for the Bulldogs is a sophomore named Connor Turnbull. I expect him to take a leap. I think he's got really good game and stretch the floor. His upside reminds me of Andrew Schrabis, a Butler player once upon a time that helped the Bulldogs to several wins over the course of a couple of years back when Chris Holtman was coaching the Dogs. I kind of like Turnbull's upside. This is a big year for Butler, Greg, because I got to tell you, it's been a couple of years now since we've been talking about them as a legit team and a legit program. They got to show that they can get back on the map. I don't know how they do it, but for Thad Matta, it might be year 2, but this is a really important season because they loaded up in the portal, and this isn't a 4, 5, 6-year project. I think they've got to show that they can make progress here this season, or else there's going to be a lot of pressure on Butler as a program because they're just not accustomed to going several years without winning.
Oh, yeah, I laid it out. They had won 40 straight years without losing 18-plus games in a season, and now they're coming off of back-to-back. Right. So, yeah, they are going to need to hit it hard here, and who knows how long St. John's is going to have with Rick Pitino at the helm because he's getting up there in years. But St. John's has Rick Pitino at the helm, and, well, that's a massive upgrade for this program. And it's going to be a lot of moving parts around Joel Soriano. Joel Soriano, out of returning players, had the most double-doubles in all of college basketball last year. But the question becomes, for one, who's all going to be eligible? Because with so many transfers, I think that there might be a guy or two that might struggle to be able to get a wager. But, there's just so many guys coming in, like a Chris Ledlum, who was able to tear it up when he was over at Harvard. Glenn Taylor Jr., I think, is an underrated piece coming in from Oregon State. Obviously, you've got a couple of Iona guys, including Dennis Jenkins, following Rick Pitino. And the big question becomes, is the chemistry going to be there? Because clearly the talent, especially having the top returning scorer in all of college basketball, Jordan Dingle, that is there. But the question is, can all these guys coexist on the same roster?
Yeah, that's a big question. The news of R.J. Lewis having a hand injury and being out now for a couple of weeks, at least, is certainly tough news for St. John's, but they do have a ton of depth. I mean, Jordan Dingle is a bucket getter. I can't tell you how many things I've heard about Chris Ledlum, the Harvard transfer. He was a terrific rebounder in the Ivy League. He's intense. He's going to help Joel Soriano. Keep an eye on Zuby Ejiofor from Kansas. I'm hearing really good things about him, Greg, and it shouldn't be that surprising. I mean, at the end of the day, Bill Self recruited him, and it just didn't work out. But I think Ejiofor could be the X factor of the team. They've got guard play with Dingle and Glenn Taylor and Simeon Wilcher. They've got big men, and they've got a Hall of Fame coach. This, to me, is one of the top 3 compelling storylines in college hoops this year. The St. John's Red Storm. They are back on the map. They've got talent. They've got depth. And they've got one of the best of all time coaching them. Watch out for the Johnnies.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that this is going to be an intriguing case study as well, because with Xavier, we were talking about the injury to R.J. Lewis. Xavier's dealing with a pair of tough injuries. As Jerome Hunter, it looks like his season is going to be done before it starts. And with Zach Fremantle, he's probably going to be out until January at the very least. But they did a great job ending the portal. Davion McKnight did everything over at Western Kentucky. He's able to give you 15 points, 5 boards, 5 assists. He does it all. Puts you all very tore up in Conference USA over at Rice. Abdul Usman, one of the better defensive big men in all of college basketball last year as well. Logan Duncombe is a former top 100 recruit that comes in from Indiana. They bring in talent, but the problem for Xavier is that core that was just so high scoring last year, they're all on the full of them. For Sean Miller, he never really had a team that was really flying up and down the floor up until last year, and I think he might need to get back to his roots a little bit more and perhaps slow things down a little bit more with the roster that he has in front of him.
Yeah, they're going to have to play a different way. He's probably going to have to play defensively oriented, hard-nosed basketball. Now, Sean Miller can do that. To me, now for Xavier, the question is, can Gaitis Nemeksa, who's a senior from Lithuania, has the international experience, can he be able to come in and help them? 6'7" guy who, for his team, Zalgiris, averaged 11 and close to 7 rebounds per game. So we'll see if he can help them. The other guy that comes to mind for this team is Lazar Djokovic, the freshman from Serbia. He's a big man who, at the FIBA U19 World Cup, averaged 15 and 7. So, look, they've got some pieces there that they brought in, but those guys are nowhere close to Fremantle or Hunter in terms of proven. But the fact is, Hoops, they're going to need those guys to step up because they are so shorthanded. Desmond Claw, the sophomore, is a breakout candidate. I love Oliveri and McKnight. I mean, I thought if they had Fremantle and Hunter, I thought Xavier could have been a top 5 team in this conference. Now I think they're probably 6th or 7th in the league. And it's unfortunate that they have to go through injuries. Having said that, if Sean Miller is 6 or 7 in your league is good.
Oh, it is very good. And with regards to this team as well, I think it's going to be interesting to see what they turn out. As joining me on the show, we do have John Fanta, does great work over at the Big East Digital Network, Fox Sports, and so much more. And that'd be Villanova. Villanova has been very reluctant to hit the transfer portal in past years. This year, they really did. Hakeem Hart comes in from Maryland after he notched about 11.5 points per contest. TJ Bamba, he's a very solid three-point shooter. And Tyler Burton, I mean, on Richmond last year at 6'7", he did it all, 19 points, 7.5 boards. You bring in Lance Ware, an upside guy from Kentucky. And then you're able to team that up with Justin Moore, which this team was just so different when Justin Moore was out there on the floor versus off of it. And I think that Kyle Neptune is a very good coach, a very good replacement for Jay Wright. Obviously, nobody is Jay Wright, but I think that he's a guy that is capable of being able to lead this team to success. I think that the ball really gets rolling in the Kyle Neptune era this year.
Yeah, I do too. I think that Villanova, hey, I'm coming in here with a hot take. I think they could be a Final Four dark horse. I know that that's bold, but Greg, that team has too much talent to not win. You got to think about this here, man. Justin Moore is a killer. That guy just wins. He's a calming presence. Villanova won 7 of their last 10 games because Moore was on the floor. Eric Dixon is a beast. He's an absolute beast. You transition to what they brought in. I've heard great things about TJ Bamba and Hakeem Hart. Hakeem Hart's experienced. He's a good defensive player. You look at and Tyler Burton. Tyler Burton is a microwave scorer who can serve in a really nice role for them. The thing is, they could have a different leading scorer from night to night. Here's the if. If Mark Armstrong comes on here in his sophomore season and is consistent and makes things happen in the backcourt, what can't Villanova do? To me, they're complete. They're going to be better defensively. I've been told they'll be better defensively. And I think they're a team that really you should look out for here this upcoming season.
And Brandon Hausen is a really nice three-point shooter as well. It feels like this Villanova team has more depth than we have seen in quite a long time. I don't know if they're going to be able to make the Final Four, but personally, I think that they're going to be finishing in the top 3 in this conference. So I do think that with Villanova, whole bunch of upside. I see them being a top 15 team. So I do think that with Villanova, they're in for a big year. And we've got one last team to preview. And we have seen varying previews with this team, to say the least, and that'd be Creighton. Because with Creighton, they've got a potential All-American in Ryan Kalkbrenner. He's 7'1". He has the range to be able to pop some threes, just an absolute menace down low. We saw how different this team was with them on versus off the floor. We got Trey Alexander, Baylor Shireman coming into the fold, as these two guys were very solid last year, and then Stephen Ashworth, who comes over from Utah State, like his game as well. I think the biggest question that I have for Creighton is depth. Are they going to be able to get anything from their freshmen, Jonathan Lawson, guys like this, because I feel like that's the one thing that might be lacking for Creighton.
Yeah, that could be the one thing lacking, but their top 4 to 5 players are just so good that they're not going to need those guys to do a ton. Creighton, it's fitting that you end with them. They are my pick to win the Big East. There it is, folks. I'm picking Creighton to win the Big East regular season championship because Stephen Ashworth is 23 years old. He's old. He's experienced, he's seasoned, he makes the right plays. And he has 2 of the elite shot makers in college basketball around him, Trey Alexander, Baylor Shireman. Kalkbrenner is an absolute beast. I mean, Ryan Kalkbrenner is as important to Creighton as a player is to any team in America. Without Kalkbrenner last year, Creighton played rough basketball, Greg. With Kalkbrenner, they were a whistle away from the Final Four. This team wants redemption. They've got enough returning pieces back, and if Mason Miller and Frederick King / Isaac Trout, the transfer from Virginia, if those guys can form a formidable slot at the four spot and alleviate Ryan Kalkbrenner from having to do everything, that backcourt, I mean, here's the thing. Where are you taking minutes from? Those guys aren't going to come off the floor. They're going to play at least 30 minutes a game. Greg McDermott is a technician, and I love Creighton. I think they've played complete basketball in recent years. Remember, the knock on them used to be they were soft. They weren't good defensively. Not anymore. Kalkbrenner's changed all that. The Blue Jays will win the Big East regular season title. That's my prediction.
And I think that you've got 4 teams that you're able to make that case for: Creighton, Villanova, Marquette, and UConn, in my opinion. And you were talking about Villanova perhaps being a dark horse Final Four candidate. I think all 4 of these teams belong at the very minimum within the zip code of being talked about for perhaps being Final Four teams. This is going to be an amazing conference, John. You get to see it all up close and in person. You're coming to me from an airport, which I'm sure that you're flying from one place where you were taking a look at Big East coverage to going to another. You're a hardworking man. I absolutely love getting you on this podcast every year for this preview. So love to get people at home know it's all on tap for you and how people are able to follow along on social media and other platforms.
At John, JOHN_Fanta with an F, ANTA, FoxSports.com, Field of 68, FS1, and Fox throughout college basketball season. I also do some CAA, Coastal Athletic Association games on CBS Sports Network. Can't wait for the season. Love joining you, Hoops, and can't wait till we talk again.
Oh, it is going to be an absolutely amazing year. John Fanta is going to be one of the voices that you're going to hear throughout the year. He's going to be on some big calls, and every single time he joins this podcast, he lends absolutely amazing insights. Big thanks to John for joining me on Cuscus Hoops, on part of the VSiN Family Podcast. This is the Big East Conference Preview Edition, so coming up next, I get you my projector finish for this fine conference. And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Cuscus Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. It is always great to get John Fanta aboard. He does absolutely amazing work over at the Big East Digital Network, the Field of 68, Fox Sports. He is Mr. Big East himself, a man that absolutely loves this conference, a man that absolutely loves college basketball. It is always a pleasure to get him on. It's a yearly tradition to have him aboard. So big thanks to John for joining me right here on Cuscus Hoops, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And just a friendly reminder before I go into my projector or finish, all the news and notes I missed from college basketball yesterday, which that will be Tuesday. We're going to be polishing those up on the podcast tomorrow, so have no fear there. We are going to be all taken care of if I did miss anything, but let's dive into my projector or finish for what is going to be a very fun Big East. And while some things change, other things remain the same, and this thing, in my opinion, is going to be remaining the same at dead last in regards to my projector or finish. Gonna be going with DePaul. It's just a rough situation for DePaul in general, and if they did retain some of their big men from last year, I could perhaps make a case for them being able to move up a little bit. I like Deshaun Nelson, someone who had 6'8", shot it relatively solidly from three-point range, was able to put in there about 10 points per contest, but man, it's really rough with this team, to say the least. Chico Carter is someone that's able to stroke it from three-point range, but this was one of the worst defenses among the technically power 6 in all of college basketball. Jalen Terry, along with Caleb Murphy. These guys have some injury issues for one. And Murphy, I do think, is going to be able to help out this backcourt this season, but you saw him even when he was out there on the floor last season. It's not like he was making some sort of an earth-shattering difference for this team either. I think that the depth is not necessarily there in comparison to most of these Big East teams as well. After you get outside their starting 5, you really just don't have a lot. You're going to really need Jeremiah Odin, who averaged right around 9.5 points per contest from Wyoming to step up a little bit, so not so much rosiness in my opinion for our good friends of Paul. I do have them number 11 with regards to my projector finish. At number 10, I'm going to be going with Butler. With Butler, they've got a lot of up transfers that they're hoping are going to be able to pan out. I still think that they have one of the better coaches that you're going to find in all of college basketball in Thad Matta, and Posh Alexander is someone that, when he's firing all cylinders, Posh Alexander is a guy that could be a game wrecker. The problem is he really doesn't shoot threes. He never has. For Posh Alexander throughout his career, he's a 25% three-point shooter. Now, if you go back to the 2021-22 season, 2.3 steals, 5.5 assists, doing the neighborhood about 2.4 turnovers per game. That was very, very solid, and he is going to be able to get the ball to other guys. And DJ Davis, who comes in from the Big West over at UC Irvine, he's a solid three-point shooter, but I do have some question marks down low. Jalen Thomas at 6'10" size has never really been a remarkable rebounder. Landon Moore is coming in from St. Francis of Pennsylvania, was one of their top players out there. Andre Screen, he's got size at 7 feet tall. He was solid at Bucknell, but he wasn't necessarily a game record either. Jamel Telford, while he was a leading scorer at Northeastern was absolutely horrible as well. So with Butler, they really have not done a great job of being able to hit the recruiting trail. They've got a lot of guys that they were good but not great at smaller schools. I do have serious question marks with them, so I do have Butler with regards to my projector finish at number 10. At number 9, I'm going to be going with Georgetown. I do think that Ed Cooley is a significant upgrade to Patrick Ewing, and he is going to be maintaining Jay Heath. Jay Heath last season was a nice double-figure scorer that's able to shoot it well from three-point range, and I do think that he's going to have a little bit more help than he did last season. And even last season, he still shot 37.5% from three. There were some situations where a bad shot for him was better than a good shot for someone else, but I thought it was really rough that they lost a Cook very late in the process, as a Cook is someone that's able to give you multiple blocks. We've seen him shoot over 40% from three-point range. They are going to be getting a little bit with regards to the backcourt with someone like Rowan Brumba coming into the fold. I think that Dontrez Styles, who was buried on the bench at North Carolina at 6'6", he's got a little bit of versatility, but now you're going to be really relying upon Supreme Cook, who might have the best name in this entire conference and has one of the best names in all of college basketball to really be a game record down low. 8.5 rebounds per game is relatively solid, but until you see really the coming of age of Ryan Mutombo, who he was a highly touted recruit at 7'2", he's obviously got those family genes. If he can be coached up, there's a lot of upside there. There's still serious question marks though as to whether or not that's going to be coming to the forefront. And with Georgetown, they've got Ismail Massoud, who's able to shoot it from three-point range, but it's never really been a primary option as well. So for Georgetown, I've got some serious question marks there. They're going to need Jaden Epps to really get other guys involved, along with perhaps Rowan Brumba. And I do think that point guard spot is something of concern for a Georgetown team, that they need to start to play some defense, as well as they were very, very bad on defense last season as well. So coming in at number 10 in my projector finish, I've got Georgetown. At number 8, I am going to be going with Seton Hall. Lots of question marks here with Seton Hall, because with regards to size, you've got Jaden Bediako coming in from Santa Clara, and he was solid at Santa Clara, but he wasn't necessarily amazing at Santa Clara. Elijah Hutchins Everett, he was solid while he was at Austin Peay. He wasn't amazing when he was at Austin Peay, and I do think that for Hutchins Everett, he is going to be able to take a few strides forward, and Sheem Holloway knows how to coach up defense, and he's going to be bringing back a lot of the better shooters that he did have from a season ago. I like Elamir Dawes. What he was able to provide last year was tremendous, with about 12.5 points per contest, shot 38% from three-point range, and Kadari Richmond at 6'6". He doesn't do one thing great, he just does a lot of things solid. 10 points, 5 boards, 4 assists, 2 steals, while shooting 44% from 3 last year. Really like his game, but now they're without Casey Undefu from last season. Dre Davis was someone that was able to take the edge off in the backcourt, as he shot 40% from three-point range, so got a lot of moving pieces for this team. This is a bunch that in general, they don't like to attempt a lot of threes. They were, even when they had all the guys down low last year, not doing the world's greatest job on being able to hold opponents to one possession. They would give up a lot of second chances as well, and they didn't necessarily bring in a ton via their freshman class. I do think that Isaiah Coleman can be able to make some contributions for this team. And Dylan Adi-Owusu, he was really able to have some moments while he was at St. John's. He's a solid three-point shooter, but in terms of being able to bring up the ball, in terms of being that floor general, if you can't have Alamir Dawes doing that, and he's going to have to do a lot of that to be able to help take the edge off of Kadari Richmond, I do think that there is big question marks there. So with regards to my projector or finish at number 8, I am going to be going with Seton Hall. At number 7, I've got Providence here. With Providence, it's a very new-look team, and they bring in a lot of players with Kim English coming over from George Mason, and I do think that he brought in the right guys from George Mason. Josh Oduru obviously was very good for this team last year. Not a great three-point shooter, but right around 6'9", he's able to pop threes, 15.5 points, 8 boards, 2.5 assists. Good versatility out there in the Big East. You also bring into the fold someone like Justin Fernandez, who I recognize he didn't score a ton of points for the team or anything like that, but I do like his overall game. I do think that there's some upside, and the biggest thing for this team is the wins and being able to retain Bryce Hopkins along with Devin Carter. These were two guys that were registering double figures for the team last year, and I legitimately do think that Bryce Hopkins is one of the more underrated players in all of college basketball. 8.5 boards, 16 points, solid three-point shooter, but you lose that crossball from last season. This team was very solid down low. It is a little bit of a regime change, and you never had Kim English really take George Mason to the NCAA tournament. I feel like he's a solid coach. I don't know if he's any sort of an amazing coach though as well. Garway Duel, hopefully I said that correctly. I think that he's going to be a perfectly solid freshman for this team. And adding Will McNair late, assuming he's eligible, that's going to be able to help out with the size down low as well. But I do have some question marks with regards to depth. Devontae Gaines, someone that is once again a holes greater than the sum of its parts sort of guy, a little bit of a glue guy, but I am wondering where some of that pop is going to be coming from offensively, as Devin Carter is right now your main guard. You're going to need someone like a Corey Floyd Jr. to be able to step up, and I do have some question marks there. So I do have Providence with regards to my projector finish at number 7. At number 6, I am going to be going with Xavier. This is despite the fact that Zach Fremantle we are expecting to miss much of, if not the entirety of the season. And that's rough because you obviously lose Sule Boom from last year as well. Sule Boom, he was able to bring the boom, and I mean, forget about the Big East. He was one of the best guards in all of college basketball last season, but I still take a look at bringing in Davion McKnight, someone that's able to do a little bit of everything, like 15 points, 5 boards, 5 assists. When I was over at Western Kentucky, I absolutely loved his overall game. Now, Jerome Hunter is dealing with a little bit of an injury as well, and that is something that you do want to be taking note of. And with Xavier, they are going to be probably embracing a little bit more defense, because last year, that was really their Achilles heel. They had that great backcourt of Kobe Jones, Sule Boom, and then you had Jack Nunge, who at 6'11", had good versatility as well. Those guys are all gone. This is a fresh team, but I really do think the world of Sean Miller, the job he's able to do as a coach. I think that Trey Green right away is going to be able to make some big contributions for this team in the backcourt. At the very least, he's going to need to be able to give Davion McKnight a little bit of a breather, but I do think that Quincy Oliveri might have been one of the more under-the-radar transfers in all of college basketball last year. I really love the way that he was able to play at Rice last season. I think that he's a perfect fit for what Xavier is looking to do. For Oliveri, right around 6 boards, he's able to throw out a few assists, career nearly 38% three-point shooter. He is textbook perfect. And then Abdul Usman, he is going to be able to help out this team defensively. He was over at North Texas, who played at the slowest pace in all of college basketball last year, was their main rim protector, did a very solid job of being able to haul in their rebounds, just being able to own the paint. And I do think that this is a Xavier team that if they can get anything out of Zach Fremantle this year, which I'm thinking that they're probably not, but even without him in the fold, Logan Duncombe, he's going to be able to do a solid job, and I think that Xavier being slept upon a little bit. I think that these pieces are better than what a lot of people want to give them credit for, and as a result, I do have the Musketeers at number 6 with regards to my projector finish. At number 5, I am going to be going with St. John's. The talent is here with St. John's. Joel Soriano was one of the few players in all of college basketball last year that was able to register a double-double. Now, Jordan Dingle, I don't think that he's going to be quite averaging the 23.4 points per contest that he did at Penn last season. That, I think, is being very logical. He shot about 35.5% from three-point range, but I do like his overall game. Now, you do have question marks with regards to some of these guys and their eligibility, like Naheem Aline. This is the second time that he has been transferred, so if got a little bit of a question mark there. I do think that RJ Louise might be someone that has a little bit of a question mark as well. I think that he should be good to go, though. I thought he was a freshman last year at UMass. I might be mistaken there, but there might be a little bit of eligibility concern with some of these guys. But Chris Ledlum, he was very good defensively while he was over at Harvard. Obviously, Dennis Jenkins knows what Rick Pitino's all about. He was his main ball handler while he was over at Iona. A little bit concerning that he's not going to be able to play alongside Walter Clayton Jr., who decided instead to go to Florida, but this team does have a lot of depth. Even someone like Azubi Ejiofor, even though he didn't see a lot of minutes last season while he was over at Kansas, he is someone with 6'9" size I think is going to be able to do a solid job spelling Joel Soriano for some minutes. Glenn Taylor Jr. I think is someone that also went a little bit under the radar. Never put up monstrous numbers when he was over at Oregon State. Last year he put up about 11.5 points per contest, shot about 31% from three-point range, but at 6'6", he's able to guard multiple positions. And I think that St. John's really going to be able to form themselves as a defense-oriented team that plays up-tempo. Simeon Wilcher coming in as a top 75 recruit is going to be able to fortify this backcourt as well. This team has depth, and I do think that St. John's going to play their best basketball late. I could easily see this be a St. John's team that they struggle out of conference. They lose a few games early on in conference, and then they're able to ascend late, and that's what I'm banking on with St. John's, putting them at number 5 with regards to my projector or finish. At number 4, I'm going to be going with Creighton. With Creighton, I was not crazy about the depth last season, and I do think that that could be a little bit of a knock on them once again this season as well. You bring back Baylor Shireman, and Shireman proved that going from South Dakota State into the Big East was really no big deal for him, as he put up tremendous numbers last year, being able to log about 12.5 points, 8.5 boards, a little bit over 3 assists, shot at a high 30s rate from three-point range. But you lose Arthur Kaluma, who I feel like he had really good versatility. He was one of the top rebounders for the team. Big key here, you do retain Ryan Kalkbrenner. Kalkbrenner, he's able to pop threes, not necessarily at the world's greatest clip, not going to shoot a ton of them, but at 7'1", he does have that versatility. He's one of the best pure big men in all of college basketball, but you also lose that floor general in Ryan Nembhard. I know that a lot of people are buzzing about Steve Ashworth, and rightfully so. Steve Ashworth, he was able to play in a up-tempo circumstance last season when he was over at Utah State. Shot it very well at Utah State. 43.5% from three-point range a season ago, but I don't know if he's going to be able to quite give you what you were able to get defensively last season. And for Creighton, it feels like they're just one injury away from this thing unraveling. You're going to need to spell Ryan Kalkbrenner for some minutes. It's probably going to be Frederick King who's going to be able to do so once again. I do like the fact that Isaac Trout, he comes in from Virginia. He's going to be able to do some nice things, but what do you really have in the backcourt other than Fran Farabello? He was with the program last year, averaged only 3 points per contest. I think that he's much more capable of being able to do more. Mason Miller, in my opinion, should have gotten more minutes as well. Just very befuddling the fact that Greg McDermott did not go to the bench at all last season, and I do think that that is going to be a little bit of an issue for Creighton. Their starting 5 is tremendous. They have nothing else after that, and that's a big reason why I do have them at number 4 with regards to my projector or finish. And at number 3, I'm going to be rolling with Villanova. Villanova last year did not have the world's greatest depth, but I do think that young guy in Brendan Housen, who didn't see a ton of minutes, but he's a former top 100 recruit that when he saw some playing time, I liked what I saw out of him. He's going to be able to make some bigger contributions this year. You saw last year Jordan Longino was starting to take some strides forward, but he was dealing with a few ailments as well, so that was hurting them. But you're able to team them up with Justin Moore, who, when he came back late in the season, this was a completely different Villanova team, as he was only able to play 13 games for the team a season ago, but when he was out there on the floor, they were able to transform themselves into a bunch that went 7-6 when he was out there. Keep in mind that one of those losses was in the NIT when they were without Cam Whitmore, who they were really banking on towards the back half of the season as well. And prior to Justin Moore getting out there on the floor, they were 2 games below 500 as well. So he was able to do a nice job of being able to help them elevate. And now you bring in someone like a TJ Bamba. A few seasons ago at Washington State, he was one of the top 3-point shooters in all of college basketball. Absolutely love the versatility of Tyler Burton as well. Tyler Burton at right around 6'7". It's not like he shoots it amazing from three-point range, but 2 seasons ago, he shot about 36.5% from three-point range. Last year, that fell to 29.5%. I attribute that to Richmond just not having a ton around him, but 19 points, 7.5 boards last season. Really like his overall game, has become a little bit of a better passer as well. Akeem Hart, he's going to be able to really take the load off as well. At 6'8", he's got all sorts of versatility. Not going to completely light it up from three-point range, but still shot about 33% from distance last year. Is able to give you a few assists, able to do a tremendous job defensively as well. Someone like a Mark Armstrong, I do think is going to be able to take some strides forward as well. And having that guy in 6'8" Eric Dixon who's able to shoot threes, and having so many guys back from a team that last 2 years has been number one in the country in terms of free throw shooting percentage. I don't think that gets stated enough. I think that Villanova going to be a very smart team, going to be a team that makes all those right little plays, and I think that that's going to result in some big wins for Mr. Neptune, who I really do like as a coach. So I did set Villanova at number 3 with regards to my projector finish. At number 2, I am going to be going with Marquette. With Marquette, Tyler Kolek is one of the best point guards that you are going to find in all of college basketball. There is a shortage of guards, in my opinion, in college basketball this year as well. So having a guy in Kolek that's able to fill it up at 7.5 assists per contest last year, that is absolutely tremendous for this team. But you just need more down low for me to be able to side with this team at number 1, because they are going to be going up against UConn, who I do have at number 1, by the way. But also Ogudero, really the only guy that gave this team north of 5 rebounds per game last year. Now, I like all that they're bringing back, as they're bringing back essentially 8 out of their top 10 scorers from last year. David Joplin even is able to shoot it very well from three-point range. Cam Jones was your top scorer last year with 15 points per contest. Not afraid to let it fly at 36% from three-point range. Losing Alvin, Maximise, Prosper, that is going to hurt this defense a little bit, but I do think that they're going to be a little bit better on that side of things. I could see Trey Norman being able to get some minutes as well, because this is a Marquette team that they were willing to go deep. They had 8 separate guys that provided north of 12 minutes per contest. They all worked very well in tandem with one another. You've got a bunch that they do a good job of being able to flock to the ball as well. Stevie Mitchell, 1.7 steals per contest. He does a tremendous job of being able to generate those turnovers, does a lot of the little things that make a big difference for the team. I do ultimately think, though, that the rebounding, it is going to be this team's Achilles heel, and that's why they might not be able to reach that Elite 8 Final Four like a lot of people are wanting them to, but I still think that this is an incredible team with one of the best backcourts in all of college basketball. So I do have Marquette number 2 with regards to my projector finish, and at number 1, as our good friend Ric Flair once said, in order to be the man, you've got to beat the man. And though UConn loses some pieces from last year, they are still the man. I've got them number 1 in my projector finish. Now, you do want to be checking in on the Donovan Clingan injury. Sounds like he should either A, be good to go for the start of the season, or B, if he's not, he misses like the Northern Arizona game or something like that. They've got a very easy first week or two before things get a little bit tougher towards Thanksgiving and beyond. But I mean, with Donovan Clingan, his per 40-minute numbers were something to behold, because he was only averaging about 13, 14 minutes per contest last season, and for Clingan, on a per 40-minute basis, averaged 21 points, 17 rebounds, and 5.5 blocks per contest. Just absolutely insane what he's able to do. I think he takes tremendous strides forward this year. They're going to need him to, because Adama Sanogo, who made things a go-go, he's out of the fold, but I love what Alex Karaban was able to do a season ago as well. And Karaban, he's able to shoot 40% from three-point range while standing right around 6'8". He was essentially a freshman last year as well. You're bringing Cam Spencer, who has, over the last few years, whether it be at Loyola Maryland, whether it be over at Rutgers, has been one of the best players at being able to take care of the ball. He would always appear in terms of top players with regards to assist or turnover ratio in all of college basketball. Became a much better shooter over the last few years, as well as someone that's able to shoot 40+% from three-point range. And then Stephon Castle. I mean, this guy is able to really light it up as well. I think that he, as a freshman, is going to be able to come in. He's going to be able to give you some massive, massive production. And then don't sleep on some of the guys that might have been understudies last year, like Hassan Diarra. He came in from Texas A&M, really didn't see a ton of minutes last year, 2 seasons ago. When I was at Texas A&M, was able to log right around 6 points per contest. A former top 100 recruit that I think he's going to be able to step up in a little bit of a bigger role this year. The freshmen like Jaden Ross, Solomon Ball. I do think that they're going to be seeing quite a bit more run as well, and I think that they're going to be able to contribute in a big way. This team is going to be absolutely tremendous down low once again this year. You bring back Tristan Newton, a guy that was able to put in there right around 10 points per contest. You can tell that he was able to do a good job of running the offense, and now that you've got Cam Spencer in the fold to take the load off as well, I think that UConn, still the top team in the Big East. I've got them number one. With regards to my projector finished, and that will wrap things up for my Big East Conference Preview Edition right here on Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the Views of Family Podcast. If you do like what you're hearing from this fine podcast, Coast to Coast Hoops, you're able to subscribe wherever you podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my X timeline at @GNN_D1. Keep in mind, letters EM, maybe does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other way, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast by that 5-star review. A big thanks once again to John Fanta, a man that does such an amazing job taking a look at this great game of college basketball, Mr. Big East himself. So big thanks to him for joining me, and I'll be with you guys every single day on this podcast during the offseason, giving you guys these conference previews and the news and notes of college basketball. Then once we get in season picks and analysis on every single game, every single day. So I appreciate you tuning in today. I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in.